The room was filled with a quiet tension. Cameras had just turned off, and the air felt heavy with words left unsaid. Ana de Armas sat in one corner, her hands folded tightly on her lap, her eyes carrying both strength and doubt. She had worked hard. She had given everything. But somewhere deep inside, she wondered if her effort was enough. Beside her, Sandra Bullock leaned back in her chair. She looked calm on the outside, yet her thoughts were racing. She too was unsure if the path they had chosen was the right one. The world often expected perfection from them, and perfection was impossible. Keanu Reeves entered the room slowly. He was not carrying papers, not looking at notes, and not rushing. He simply walked in with the same calmness that had carried him through storms before. His presence did not demand attention, but it always received it. He sat down across from them, his face steady, his voice unhurried. He could see the worry in Anna's eyes and the weight on Sandra's shoulders, and he chose not to ignore it. "You both look like you are fighting two battles," Keanu said softly. "The one outside that the world sees, and the one inside that no one understands." The words touched something hidden. Anna lowered her eyes. Sandra breathed out slowly. They did not expect him to speak so directly, with no shield, no wall, only truth. Anna spoke first. "Keanu, what if we are wrong? What if we are not strong enough this time? The pressure keeps growing. It feels like no matter what we do, people will still doubt us." Sandra added quietly, "We tell the world we believe in kindness, in respect, in choosing the harder path. But sometimes I wonder if we are only fooling ourselves. The world rewards noise, not calm." For a moment, silence filled the room. Keanu did not answer immediately. He let the silence breathe, because silence itself had power. He leaned forward, resting his hands on the table, and his eyes carried no judgment, only patience. "Doubt is not your enemy," he finally said. "Doubt only asks you if your heart is still honest. If you are afraid, it means you care. And if you care, it means you are already stronger than most people who shout without thinking." The room shifted. The tension was still there, but something had changed. Anna's eyes lifted again. Sandra leaned forward this time. There was a new thread in the air, something pulling them closer instead of pushing them apart. Anna whispered, "But what if calm is seen as weakness? People may think we are not bold enough." Keanu smiled, the kind of smile that carried years of scars and lessons. "Calm is not weakness. Calm is choosing not to break when the world tries to push you into chaos. Anyone can raise their voice. Very few can lower it and still be heard." The words landed deeply. Sandra felt her heartbeat slow. Anna felt her shoulders release some of the weight she had been carrying. In that moment, they both realized they were sitting not just with a man, but with an answer they had been searching for silently. The conversation did not end there. The story was only beginning. The doubt inside them was real, but so was the strength they were about to discover. Keanu's calm was not only a response, it was a door opening into a journey they had not yet imagined. And as the night grew quiet, neither Anna nor Sandra knew how much this calm answer would change everything that followed. The next morning came heavy with unspoken thoughts. Anna woke early, her heart still restless from the words Keanu had spoken. She stood by the window, looking at the city lights fading into daylight. She remembered his calm voice, how it seemed to cut through her fear without dismissing it. Yet the doubt had not left her. Instead, it now lived side by side with something new, curiosity. Sandra joined her later that morning. She carried 2 cups of coffee, handing one to Anna without saying a word at first. The silence between them was not empty. It was full of questions, of choices, of wondering what would happen if they stepped forward or if they stepped back. Sandra finally spoke. "He made it sound so simple," Sandra said quietly. as if calm can win against noise. But I wonder, what if calm only leaves us forgotten? Anna nodded. I thought the same. But when he said those words, it felt like they were meant for us, not for the world. Maybe the question is not about being remembered. Maybe it is about being true to who we are. Their conversation was interrupted by a call. The producer wanted answers. The event was near, and the pressure was mounting. Millions of people were waiting to see them stand together. Every word would be weighed, every look judged. The world outside was loud, impatient, and demanding. They went to meet Keanu again that afternoon. He was already there, sitting at the corner of a quiet cafe, far from the cameras, far from the noise. He looked as if he had been waiting not for minutes but for years, patient and steady. Anna sat across from him, her voice soft but filled with urgency. Keanu, you spoke about calm, but how do we live it when everyone expects us to fight louder, shout harder, prove ourselves every second? Keanu listened. He did not interrupt. He let her words flow like a storm passing through. Then he placed his cup down and answered. The world measures strength by how much you can control others. But real strength is how much you can control yourself. If you shout with them, you are just another voice in the storm. If you stay calm, you become the silence everyone notices. Sandra leaned closer. But silence is hard. Silence feels like surrender sometimes. No, Keanu replied, his eyes steady. Silence is not surrender when it is chosen. Silence can be louder than anger if it is filled with truth. When people doubt you, they are only lending you their fear. You do not have to borrow it. Anna felt her chest tighten. Those words hit deeper than she expected. She had always thought doubt was her weakness, a weight she could not escape. But now she began to see it as proof of her care, proof that she still carried fire in her heart. The cafe grew quieter, as if the world itself wanted to listen. Outside cars passed, voices rose and fell, but at their table, time slowed. You think we are ready? Sandra asked, almost whispering. Keanu smiled gently. You were ready long before you believed you were. Doubt only blinded you from seeing it. I am not here to give you strength. I am here to remind you of the strength you already carry. Anna's eyes grew moist. Sandra looked away, trying to hide the crack in her voice. They had been admired for years, praised by millions, but this moment felt different. This was not about fame or success. This was about who they truly were, beyond the stage, beyond the lights. And for the first time in days, the storm inside them began to calm. But as they stepped out of the cafe, the noise of the world returned louder than ever. Reporters waited. Questions fired at them like arrows. And though they carried Keanu's words with them, both Anna and Sandra knew this was only the beginning of a much harder battle. The press conference was only 2 days away. The city buzzed with excitement. But for Anna and Sandra, it felt like the walls were closing in. Every headline carried their names, every news channel spoke of what they would say, and yet neither of them felt ready. Anna paced the room late at night. Her steps echoed on the wooden floor, her mind racing. She remembered Keanu's words, the calm he carried, but the fear inside her did not go away. She thought about her past, every failure, every moment when she felt small, every time someone had told her she would not make it. Those voices returned, louder now, as if the world had been waiting to remind her. Sandra sat quietly in the corner. She had always been strong in front of others, always the one who carried herself with dignity and grace. But even she could feel the pressure pressing against her chest. She whispered into the quiet room, Anna, do you think we are fooling ourselves? Maybe calm is only beautiful in stories. Maybe in the real world, people only respect those who roar the loudest. Anna stopped pacing. She looked at Sandra, her eyes heavy with tears she was holding back. "I don't know," she said softly. "I want to believe him. But what if we stand there in silence, and the world laughs at us?" The words cut deep. The fear was not only about failing, it was about being misunderstood, about being seen as weak when they were trying to be strong. The next day, they met Keanu again. This time, the place was different. He had invited them to a quiet park outside the city. Children played in the distance, and the sound of laughter filled the air. He stood near a tree, watching the children run, his face thoughtful. "Look at them," he said when Anna and Sandra arrived. "They don't worry if they look foolish. They don't think about headlines. They just run because their hearts tell them to." Anna frowned. "We are not children, Keanu. The world is waiting for us. They expect answers." "And answers will come," he replied calmly, "but not the ones they are shouting for. The world doesn't need louder words. It needs steadier hearts." Sandra crossed her arms. She wanted to believe, but the fear was still there. "You make it sound easy. But when the lights are on us, when every voice is ready to judge, what if we freeze? What if silence betrays us?" Keanu turned to face her. His eyes were steady, unshaken. "Silence only betrays you if you fill it with fear. If you fill it with truth, silence becomes your greatest weapon. When you stand in calm, you do not stand alone. You stand with every person who has ever been crushed by noise, but still chose kindness instead of anger." His words hung in the air like a promise. Anna felt a shiver run through her. Sandra lowered her arms slowly. The weight inside them had not disappeared, but something new began to grow. Courage, fragile, but real. That evening, as they prepared for the days ahead, both women carried a quiet realization. Calm was not about winning or losing. It was about who they chose to be when the world demanded something else. But neither of them knew that the true test would not come at the press conference. It would come later, when the world pushed harder than they had ever imagined, and when even Keanu's calm would be shaken. The night of the press conference arrived. The hall was bright, filled with cameras, lights, and voices. Outside, hundreds of people gathered, waiting for answers, waiting for drama, waiting for something that would fill headlines. Inside, the atmosphere was heavier than stone. Anna sat behind the curtain, her hands cold. She tried to breathe slowly, but each breath felt shallow. She whispered to herself, repeating Keanu's words, "Calm is not weakness. Calm is not weakness." But when she looked out through the gap in the curtain and saw the crowd, her courage began to tremble. Sandra sat beside her. She held her hand tightly, trying to give strength, though her own heart raced. "We can do this," she said quietly. "We just have to remember who we are." But even her voice carried a faint crack. Keanu entered the backstage quietly. He did not carry a script. He did not give them a speech to follow. He simply placed a hand on Anna's shoulder and looked at Sandra with steady eyes. "Remember," he said gently, "they expect noise. Give them calm. They expect fear. Give them truth. And no matter how loud it gets, breathe. Your breath is your shield." His words stayed with them as they walked onto the stage. The lights hit their faces, blinding for a moment. The sound of applause and murmurs filled the hall. Then silence fell as reporters lifted their microphones. Anna and Sandra sat at the table, their eyes adjusting, their hearts pounding. The first question came sharp, like a blade. "People say you are avoiding the truth. Are you too afraid to admit failure?" Anna froze for a second. Her instinct was to defend, to argue, to shout, but she remembered Keanu's calm, his voice in her memory. She took a deep breath, held it, then let it go. "We are not afraid of truth," she said softly. "Truth does not need to be shouted. It only needs to be lived. The reporters stirred, some rolling their eyes, some scribbling quickly. The second question was harsher. Many believe your silence means you have nothing to offer. What do you say to people who call you irrelevant now? This time, Sandra leaned forward. Her voice was low, steady. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is choice. When we choose silence, it is not because we are weak. It is because we believe respect speaks louder than noise. A few in the audience grew restless. They wanted a fight. They wanted anger. But what they got was calm. And calm unsettled them more than anger ever could. The questions kept coming, sharper, crueler, pushing them to break. Yet each time, Anna and Sandra answered not with fire, but with patience. Their voices were steady, their eyes unshaken. But then, a voice rose from the back of the hall, louder than all the rest. It was not a reporter. It was a critic who had followed them for years, a man who thrived on stirring chaos. His words cut like knives. You are nothing but actors hiding behind empty kindness. The world doesn't need your calm. It needs strength, and you don't have it. The hall erupted with whispers. Cameras turned, waiting for them to fall apart. Anna's heart raced. Sandra's hands clenched under the table. For a moment, the calm they carried began to break. But then, Keanu, who had been standing quietly at the side of the stage, stepped forward. He did not raise his voice. He did not rush. He simply walked to the microphone, his presence still and powerful. Strength is not measured by how loud you can shout, he said quietly, yet every ear in the hall heard him. Strength is measured by how steady you remain when the world demands you break. They did not come here to prove themselves to you. They came here to remind all of us that kindness, respect, and calm are choices we can still make, even when the world mocks them. The hall went silent. The critic had no answer. The weight of Keanu's calm filled the room like a tide. Anna and Sandra looked at him, their eyes shining. For the first time, they felt the crowd not as a storm against them, but as something they could stand before without fear. And in that moment, they realized Keanu was not only answering for them. He was teaching them how to answer for themselves with a strength no one could take away. The morning after the press conference, the world was already awake with noise. News channels replayed every word. Headlines twisted calm into weakness, patience into hesitation. Some praised them for their composure, but most mocked them. They said nothing. They are afraid to fight. Calm is just another name for surrender. Anna sat in her kitchen with the newspaper spread before her. Her coffee grew cold as her eyes moved across the cruel headlines. Each word pressed against her chest like a stone. She thought she had been ready for this, but reading it hurt more than she imagined. Sandra arrived soon after. She carried her phone, showing the endless comments online. Thousands of voices, some cruel, some kind, but the cruel ones felt louder.
Look at this, Sandra whispered. They call us weak. They say we wasted everyone's time.
Anna shook her head, her voice breaking.
We tried to be calm, but maybe they were right. Maybe calm is not enough. Maybe we are only disappointing the world.
Silence fell between them. Both women felt the same weight, doubt returning, heavier than before. Keanu came later that afternoon. When he stepped into the room, he did not bring answers. He simply sat with them, letting their silence fill the air. Finally, he spoke. The world is loud today because you touched something they don't understand. People fear what they cannot control. Your calm made them see themselves, and not everyone is ready for that. Sandra looked at him with frustration. But how do we keep going if every step we take turns into noise? How do we fight back without becoming like them? Keanu leaned forward, his hands folded. You don't fight back. You stand. You let the storm rage around you, and you remain who you are. Storms burn out. Calm does not. Anna's eyes filled with tears. But what if we break before the storm ends? Keanu looked at her gently. Then you lean on each other until you can stand again. Calm is not about standing alone. It is about standing together. His words stayed with them through the evening. They walked outside together later, the city buzzing with voices, billboards flashing their faces with bold headlines. The world seemed against them. Yet, for the first time, Anna and Sandra did not feel completely alone. As they walked side by side with Keanu, they noticed small things. A woman passing by stopped to smile softly. A young man whispered, "Thank you," as he hurried past. Not everyone shouted cruelty. Some understood. Some carried the same calm inside themselves. The backlash was loud, yes. But hidden beneath the noise, seeds of something new were growing: respect, hope, and the quiet strength of people who had been waiting for someone to stand without shouting. And in that moment, Anna and Sandra realized something important. Calm might not win the world in a day, but it could change one heart at a time. And that was enough to keep walking forward. Days passed, and the noise of the world only grew louder. Every channel kept talking, every voice kept arguing, and Anna and Sandra felt the weight pressing heavier each day. The calm they tried to hold on to was now tested at every step. Then came the hardest blow. An international magazine released a story mocking them, calling their silence an empty show. The article went viral. Friends sent messages of support, but the cruelty spread faster than kindness. Anna broke down that night. She sat alone in her room, her face hidden in her hands, her tears falling freely. "I can't do this anymore," she whispered to herself. "No matter how hard I try, they only see weakness. Maybe I was wrong to believe in calm. Maybe kindness doesn't matter in a world like this." Sandra found her hours later. She sat beside her, her own eyes heavy. "I feel the same, Anna. I thought we were strong enough. But maybe Keanu was wrong. Maybe calm is not enough for the world we live in." They both sat in silence, broken, until Keanu entered quietly. He looked at them, not with disappointment, but with the same steady calm he had always carried. He listened as they poured out their pain, their doubts, their fears. When they finished, he spoke slowly. "The world will always doubt what it cannot control. But you are not here to convince the world. You are here to live the truth inside you. If you give up now, then doubt wins. If you keep standing, then calm wins. Not for everyone, but for those who need it most." Anna shook her head, her tears still falling. "But what if we fail again? What if silence breaks us?" Keanu's eyes softened. "Then let it break you. And when you rise again, you will rise stronger. Failure is not the end of calm. Failure is proof that you still tried when the world told you to quit." His words struck something deep inside them. They realized he was not asking them to be perfect. He was asking them to be true. The next day, another public event came. This time, the crowd was even larger. The air was filled with tension, with voices demanding answers. Anna and Sandra stood together on stage, their hearts pounding. The questions came sharp, cruel, mocking, worse than before. But instead of fear, they carried something different this time. They carried truth. Anna stepped forward first. "You call calm weakness. You say silence means fear, but silence can also mean respect. Calm can also mean courage. We are not here to shout louder than you. We are here to remind you that voices do not need to rise to matter." The hall stirred. Some mocked, but others listened. Then Sandra spoke. Her voice was steady, filled with quiet strength. Every person in this world has faced doubt. Every person has felt weak. But calm does not deny fear. It walks with it. We are not perfect, and we are not unshaken. But we choose calm because the world already has too much noise. Someone has to choose differently. The hall fell into silence. Cameras rolled, but the reporters did not speak for a moment. It was as if the weight of their words had settled into the room. And then, from the back of the hall, a young girl stood up. She was small, her voice trembling, but she spoke loudly enough to be heard.
"Thank you," she said. "Thank you for not shouting. Thank you for reminding us that kindness is not weakness."
The entire hall turned toward her. Her simple words carried more weight than any headline. Anna and Sandra felt tears in their eyes. In that moment, they realized what Keanu had been trying to show them from the beginning. Calm does not win by drowning out noise. Calm wins by reaching hearts that have been waiting for it. Keanu stood quietly at the side of the stage, his face calm, his eyes proud. He did not need to speak. His answer had already lived through them. The storm outside did not disappear overnight. The world remained loud, demanding, restless. But now, Anna and Sandra carried something stronger than doubt. They carried the knowledge that calm had power, not because it silenced everyone, but because it gave hope to those who needed it most. And from that day on, they were no longer afraid of doubt. Because doubt was only proof that they still cared, and care was the root of every true strength.